Welcome to the show. Hey, so welcome to Beyond Quest with Reck. I've got the unflappable Kacey Ezell here on the show this morning.
That's very flattering. I feel a little flapped sometimes, I'll be honest with you.
Well, you don't show it. The visually unflappable Kacey Ezell. I don't know. I'll work on it.
Allegedly unflappable.
The allegedly unflappable Kacey Ezell. I'll take it. So this is an episode of first, because this is the first morning episode I've ever recorded. So congratulations.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me at this weird time, Reck. I appreciate it. Mm-hmm. I know I've been kind of a pain in the ass to get a hold of, just because my family and I were in the middle of like a cross-country move and lots of transitions and stuff. So I appreciate you fitting me in where you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you're here. And I've certainly moved across country a couple times. It's a mess.
It's so much fun. It's so much. That's code, but that's what we're going with.
Yeah. It's everything's fine.
It's an adventure.
Everything's fine.
That's right. Flames going on behind me. This is fine. Yeah, I do. I feel like that dog in the meme sometimes.
I still have this memory of moving my kids across country from Washington to Wisconsin. And I had 2 cats at the time. So I have 2 cats and 2 kids, like 10-ish in the car. Mm-hmm. And my one cat was just howling for hours, like 4 hours she howled. And then at some point she fell asleep, and it was like, Nirvana, right?
Silence.
And you gotta, it's like 2 kids and the cat carries between them. Mm-hmm. And the cat carrier had kind of like shifted over to one of the sleeping kids, who woke up and elbowed the cat carrier off of her. And then it was like 6 more hours of howling.
That's so brutal. I'm so sorry. Yeah, we have 2 cats right now too, and I drove them like the first portion of the move, the first of the 12-hour drive days, and they cried a little bit, but they were mostly really good. And and I only have the one kiddo at home because my oldest is off living her own adult life, doing adult big girl things. She's and my youngest was really good with the cats, so I was grateful for that.
That's good.
Yeah, the crying.
No.
Like, how loud can I turn up this music without damaging everyone's eardrums?
Yes. I love it.
Animal lovers, I would never do that.
No. But if you've ever been in a car with a cat howling for like 10 hours, it gets old after a while.
I'm pretty sure that was a KGB interrogation technique back in the day. I'm just saying.
Yeah. We're just gonna put you in this cage with like 5 cats howling.
That's right. They're all gonna yell at you forever.
Yeah.
Oh man.
We're here to talk about your latest book, Blood on the Sand. It's book 2 of Magelight. I'm just gonna say, Kacey, like, I liked Magelight, but I loved Blood on the Sand. Yeah, I really loved it.
Thank you. I mean, I obviously love them both. I'm very proud of them both, but I think I can say objectively that Blood on the Sand is I think it's a better novel in terms of, it should be, right? Because like you level up with every book you write. And so, I'm a better author now than I was when I released Magelight. And the story's further along. So the characters are more developed. So the relationships are more developed, and the adventure is really fun.
Well, and Magelight was very much like a book 1. Like, you were setting the scene and introducing these characters, and it went through a lot of just like the normal, like, here's this group, right, that we're dealing with, and here's their issues. And book 2, you're like, let's dive in.
Yeah, kind of a little bit.
You get to the adventure part, Yeah. Well, we can't have too many spoilers but it is a book 2, so there might be some. So if you're watching, just know we're going to try to dance around spoilers as best we can. But I'm just going to give just kind of an overview. We follow Bellatrix Alis, and so Bellatrix in this world is like it's like a mage.
Yeah,
moniker,
it's
title.
like her title. It means like battle sorceress, basically.
Yeah. So we follow Bellatrix Alis and her three men, Dane, Vil, and Romick, which is the forester, the rogue, and the gladiator, the brawler.
The fighter.
Yeah. As they deal with the aftermath of book one. At the beginning of the book, they have this really unsteady friendship bond with each other, and they're trying to lay low and not catch anyone's eye, dodging enemies in like the countryside. And they end up having to go to they have to take a journey, and they end up in an unexpected place, and it's near the city of gladiators that Romick had a history with, where he became like the demon of the arena. And so they've got to fight his history with the city and band together as like politics and the machinations of the city try to drag them under the sand.
Well done. So, that was a good synopsis.
Here we go. Note, I will not be writing people's back the book blurbs.
Cover blurbs, man. I'm so grateful. Griffin Barber, who's one of the editors at Baen, is like a champion at them, and so I'm always just like, here's my start, Griff, make it pretty, please.
Like that person needs like gold bars, like there you can't. If you've got the blurb skill, like it's a rare one.
It is. It's a rare skill.
It's a rare one.
For sure. No. So the purpose. I mean, the purpose was just to continue the story of these characters that I love, right? So I said, I've said about Magelight that it is many things, but one of the things that it is my love letter to fantasy adventure gaming, right? Because it's quite literally the origin story for an adventure party, because you have, your hapless sorceress, and then you have your very experienced, very, very competent, very attractive men who are
as well make them very attractive.
I mean,
sensitive. They hit a lot of.
I don't know about sensitive.
I don't know. They pout quite a bit.
Well, Dane certainly does. Dane certainly does. They're. But yeah, so you have your warrior, your forester, which is like a ranger archetype, and then your career criminal thief, bad boy archetype, and they're having adventures together. And what Magelight was in, among other things, it was like, why are these people together, right? Like why what has happened? What events have put them together to make them essentially a team and an adventuring party? Blood on the Sand is the continuation of that evolution of the things that tie them together, but it's also like addressing some of their backstory. So in Magelight, I very sort of quickly tell the reader that like these three men, they grew up together as boys, and then when they were about 12, their village was attacked, and everybody that they knew other than each other was killed, and they were like kids, right? And so they were very scared, and they spent the night in the forest, and then the next morning they argued and got separated, and then they didn't see each other for 20 years. And in those intervening 20 years, each of them, went through things and grew up and had their own sort of adventures and trials and tribulations that made them into the, competent, badass, dangerous men that they are when we meet them in Magelight. And so Blood on the Sand is sort of our way of dealing with one of their backstories. In this case, it's Romick, right? So his story was when they got separated as boys. He was picked up by a group of unscrupulous men who, when he fought them, they're like, "Oh, okay, you've got a fighting spirit. We can make money off of you." And so they sold him to essentially a gladiator stable. Through there were a couple of transactions that got him there, but eventually he ended up in a gladiator stable in one of the biggest cities in the empire that this is all set in. And that's the city of Xandrine. And so in Xandrine, he realizes that he has two choices. He can either get good at fighting and killing, or he can die. And so he chooses option one. And he becomes very good. He becomes so good that he earns his freedom, makes the family that purchased him, his enslavers, he makes them very rich, and they essentially adopt him as a part of the family, which he, of course, has some some mixed feelings about.
And
that was something that I didn't really want to shy away from either. Was that because in many accounts that I've read of ancient Rome, where slavery was a daily part of life, these people that lived in the household that did the work, they were part of your lives, like many of the enslavers viewed their victims as like family, and sometimes that relationship kind of went both ways. I mean, a little bit of Stockholm syndrome for sure, but and so I didn't really want to shy away from addressing like that particular dynamic. But Romic is like, when he leaves the city, he's like, I'm never going back. I'm never looking back. There's nothing for me here.
This is a trauma box that we're going to put on a shelf and never open it.
Right, exactly. I'm going to leave that there. That can stay there. I don't need to open it until all of a sudden he's left with no choice through a series of unfortunate and kind of random events where, this is they end up shipwrecked nearby. And that's where they have to go to, survive. And so he finds himself, and there was another, there's one scene where, did you watch Firefly? Are you a Firefly fan? Okay. So I really wanted to do this in the episode, what's it called? I can't remember the name of the episode, but it's the one where they go to Janetown, right? And like Jane's like, I didn't exactly leave on the best of terms, and they walk in and there's like a statue of him standing there. So I kind of wanted to like pay homage to that moment in this. So there's a moment when Romig is returning to the villa of the people that owned him, and they walk into the courtyard and there's this statue of him standing there, and all his friends are like, is that? He's like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. But yeah, so that was kind of fun to like I said, kind of dig into some of those feelings and dynamics, and I hope I did it in a way that was didn't shy away from the horror of owning other people and how evil that is, but also showed that people react to it in very different ways, so
yeah, it definitely had this, like, you feel Romic's discomfort. Right. Like he's like, I didn't want to go to this town, the city, and then also like the only people he knows in the city are his former owners, and it's very like thrust upon him in a way that he is not prepared for. But I mean, you explore also, you get a little bit of Aelis's like a former like schoolmate love interest sort of kind of pops into this situation. Bill ends up doing some of his like thievery sort of
nefarious activities.
Nefarious activities. So he gets kind of sucked into the underworld a little bit. So I mean, I think Dane is maybe the only one that like he was dealing more with feelings about other things.
Yeah, he had big feelings.
Yeah, he has big feelings. He's the sulky, the broody Forrester.
That's right. That's right. It's so funny because in the first book, so many people were like, "Oh my God, I love Dane. He's like, he's so kind to her," and he's like, because the thing about Dane is, relationship wise, he was all in from the beginning. Like he met Aelis in the first book, and she through a series of accidental events, she ends up bonded to these men, and they all feel like this pull towards her. And Dane dives in. He's like, I don't care if it's magic. You're a beautiful woman. I admire the things that you can do. I'm in. Yeah, let's do it. I'm here's my entire heart. Have it. Enjoy. And Aelis is very well aware that, you know, magic does not equal consent. and then, and so you know, this is a minor spoiler, but at the end of Magelight, she ends up severing that magical bond in order to, you know, give the guys the choice to like either stay with her or not as they choose. And Dane is pissed. Like, he's like, what are you, he takes it as a,
how
like,
dare you not trust my feelings?
Right, exactly. He takes it as a serious rejection of himself. And Dane, because of his backstory, Dane is particularly sensitive to rejection. Like, he feels like he's been rejected his whole life. In fact, the only people who haven't rejected him in his mind are Romick and Vil, right? His brothers, which it, again, in the first book, I set it up that once they get back together, they swear like an oath of brotherhood to each other. And, you know, while that is weighty enough as it is, in this particular instance, the three of the divine goddesses that exist in this world, you know, as part of the religion, kind of show up to witness this oath. And so it's like, it becomes something a little bit more mystical than, you know, just the solemn oath of brotherhood that, you know, that people would swear. And so really those are the only two people that, you know, at the beginning of Blood on the Sand, Dane feels like those are the only two people who haven't rejected him in his life. And he's big mad about it. And so we get to see some of the, it's not quite the miscommunication trope that exists a lot in romance, but it's sort of a nod to it, I guess, in a way that didn't make me feel like it was dumb.
Yeah, I think, yeah, because it keeps it more in the feelings. I think that the communication, he knows, and like intellectually, he knows what Alis is trying to do and everything, but he just can't get out of his feelings, which which I mean is valid, right? Feelings are a big thing, and you know, there are certainly times when I'm like, I know intellectually that what I am feeling is not rational, and yet I cannot stop feeling it. So here we are. Yeah. There's that moment where you're like halfway through a fight with your spouse and you're like, this is...
Am I?
I maybe don't make sense.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Like, oh shit. Okay. Well. Okay. So in the series, I've described it as hot but not spicy. Let's talk about that. It's kind of got this like reverse harem. You know, and this book is maybe hotter than book one. Book one, there was a lot of like longing. Book two, there's a little bit more there, but it's a lot of fade to black moment. I want to say that you really do sizzle the tension between Alis and the boys.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate the fact that it's not, because the guys have this like brotherhood bond, you're not like wrapped up in jealousy between them, which I really am thankful for, because that would just get old very quick. Well,
so the truth is, you know, I've said this before, I would call it a guilty pleasure, but I don't really feel particularly guilty about it. But I genuinely enjoy reading reverse harem romance as, you know, sort of like a brain break, right? And one of the things that I enjoy most about that particular subgenre is the best ones. In the best ones, at least in my opinion, the guys themselves have some sort of connection with each other that is apart from just the fact that they're all in love with the same woman. And it seems to me that, I mean, it's fantasy, of course, right? You know, and I'm certain that there are people who have made, you know, poly relationships like this work in the real world, but it's not that common. And part of the reason that it's not that common is because that doesn't seem to be the natural way that most people have been socialized to act with each other, right? And so I wanted a reason for them to be able to overcome that initial, you know, that sort of possessiveness of like, this is my person and my person's attention is all on me and all of my attention is on this person. I needed some kind of reason for for them to be able to move past that made sense to me and made sense within the world and didn't make them, what's the word I'm looking for? It didn't make them cardboard characters. You know what I mean? That still allowed them.
It doesn't lessen them as.
Yeah, it didn't. Exactly. It didn't make them, it made them still feel like real people. And so, once again, enter magic and divine and divine intervention. This is
in that regards, it actually like boosts up it makes their characters more multidimensional because then you have this like goddess element and this magical bond between them and stuff. Right. So
and it's something that they have to kind of think about and deal with, because that element is there. In fact, it's interesting that you bring this up because I'm in the middle of writing book 3 right now, and I just wrote a scene or just reread a scene that I'd written previously where by the end of Blood on the Sand, they're all bound together as her Aegeons, right? Again, minor spoiler. And so here I am in book 3, and she is, there's just like a minor interaction between her and one of the guys, and another one of the guys is there, and he says something about being jealous, and she's like, oh no, I don't want to cause problems. And he's like, no, this isn't a problem unless you make it a problem. He's like, of course I'm jealous. I want all of your time, but I recognize that you need him as well. And that the unique nature of our bond is such that like, I am grateful to him for what he gives to you. And I'm grateful for you for giving him what he needs. So, go and spend time with your other husband, dear, but I'm going to be a little jealous, but it's not a problem. Like, I'm not jealous. I'm just waiting for my turn, So that's been an interesting thing to kind of like work out and figure out how to portray that on the page in such a way that it feels real and not fake, Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about the strategy. I think that in a lot of romance, right? The downfall of a romance is that the characters actually get together and live happily ever after, right?
Right.
Novels, right? Because then where's the story?
Right.
I think one of the things that struck me on this book too, I mean, book 1, they weren't bonded. They didn't come together. Book 2, you still have that kind of like, will they, won't they to play with. But that's mostly, I mean, again, minor spoilers here, but like that's mostly resolved at the end of book 2. Right. How do you plan on like, how do you think as an author on like continuing that tension or that the sizzle factor of the book?
So
the series.
The truth of the matter is that I really, really like being married to my husband. And being married is way hotter than being single ever was for me. And so one of the things that I really do want to portray is that, even though this relationship, which, in this world, the Aegeon bonds that they share are recognized as, by the law as binding as a legal marriage. Right. So one of the things that I for sure want to portray, particularly in book 3, is that like, they're still insane for each other. They still are like that tension and that wanting and that desire is still there, even though they, get to have one another, if that makes sense. And the other part of it is that, the adventure in Magelight was pretty basic. It was like, okay, get girl from point A to point B and don't let her die. Right.
Yeah.
The adventure in Blood on the Sand got a little bit more complicated, a little more convoluted, and pulled in some more of the politics of the world. We're going to see the evolution of that as the story continues. We're going to see much more of the larger world. And
do you do a good job of like planting the seeds of that at the end of book 2?
Thank you.
There's this moment where you're like the world, like book 1, to your point, was the world was a little bit more simpler. It was, mage training grounds.
Yeah. The scope was narrower.
The scope. Book 2, you have this like capital and you get this history and this rich like culture. Book 3, you're like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
so we're going to have some external events that are going to have a little bit more impact on their daily lives and their relationships. And it's one of the things that's been fun to play with in terms of that too, that I guess maybe I should have anticipated, but was a pleasant surprise, was that I get to look at those events through the eyes of all the different guys and how it affects them, you know. And so, like, for example, you know, Romick is, besides, you know, after he was an arena champion and won his freedom, he went and served in like a mercenary company. So he's also got like a military fighter background as well. So he's interested in these events as they affect his life, because he's seen the effects of armed conflict before, and you know, and has that sort of context to put things in. Same with Dane, right? Dane, as a former imperial forester, most of the people that he knew were younger sons of noble families, and so he's aware of the political machinations, even though he hates them and like wants nothing to do with them. He has that sort of, you know, he has that frame of reference and understanding of what's going on. Phil does not give a shit. He just wants to keep his girl alive. You know, and that has been really interesting to play with. He's like, I don't care who wins. I just want to make sure you're safe and my brothers are safe. And, you know, like, yeah, so that's been fun.
Yeah, he's got his own. I mean, he understands underworld politics, but
for sure.
But his view of the world is a lot simpler in that, you know, it's like, it's the found family I care about.
Yep. Yeah. And he's 100% open about that, right? Like almost sociopathically so. You don't matter unless I just.
He's like, I care about these 3 people.
That's it.
Deeply. No, nothing else.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Well, okay. So book 2, as you heard, is really following Romick and this champion of the arena sort of storyline. Can you talk about Blood on the Sand and where that comes from?
Yeah, for sure. So in Magelight, I introduce, in fact, I think it's in Romick's introductory chapter, I have him, sorry, I've got a like frog in my throat. I have him saying the words blood on the sand, kind of as almost like a verbal talisman or a mantra right before a battle. And the reason he does that is because I set it up such that was a phrase that his trainer, his, you know, owner, told him before his first time in the arena. It was like, look, kid, like there's always going to end up with blood on the sand. That's the whole point. There will always be blood on the sand, boy. But you get to decide, is it yours or is it going to be his? Your choice, you know? And that's part of that, like, get good or die choice that Romick had to make. As
get good or die is just not quite as poetic,
as punchy.
Yeah.
But that's really what it comes down to, right? Like, either you're going to survive or you're not. And you know, it's kind of up to you. I mean, fate plays a hand and the other guy gets a vote, but it's kind of up to you, right?
Yeah. I mean,
so
it is he is lucky he's got talent, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, for sure. And so that's always been kind of like his sort of, like I said, verbal talisman, right? Of there's always going to be blood in the sand. Is it mine or is it his? I get to decide, you know? Yeah. And one of the things that I loved so much about writing this book was that, you know, he always had to do that on his own. Like, and I mean, of course, you know, arena battles come in an infinite variety, and there were certainly ones where he fought alongside other men. And as a mercenary, he fought alongside, you know, his other men, the men in his unit. But he always felt alone. Like it's me, and maybe these guys are temporary allies, but there's no connection there.
Yeah.
And the difference between this particular, because with the title like Blood on the Sand, of course they end up in the arena, obviously.
Of course, yeah. I mean,
so the difference here is that this time he really isn't alone. He's got his brothers and he's got Alis with him. And so there's a moment where they're entering the arena and he says that, and I think I have her take his hand or something, but she says, not ours, not today, you know? So finally someone else answers that question with him, you know, and that was kind of a fun moment to write. The whole arena battle was so much fun to write.
The arena battle was a lot of fun. Yeah.
I had so I had and I think I have the link in the back matter of the book, but I had a Spotify playlist going of like all these like epic cinematic trailer like movie trailer songs, you know? So it's like the epic cinematic version of, you know, insert X pop song here. And like I had that playing on repeat, and I had just like these mental images of these like super cinematic, something out of like, you know, the Troy movie or Gladiator, or, you know, of the HBO series Spartacus, you know, all of these scenes in my head as I was writing them. It was a lot of fun.
I believe it. The arena scene definitely had that, like, you know, the grand battle, right? And then they open up the lion cage, or they open up the, you know, like, you're like, oh, this is just going to be a straight up fight, and then things happen and you're like, yeah, it's fun. So
it was a good time.
Yeah. All right, so if you're in the chat, we've definitely got some folks that are listening along. So if you're in the chat and you've got a question for Kacey, go ahead and start putting those questions in the chat, and we'll get to them. I've got a couple more questions I want to make sure that we get to about the book before we get to audience questions, though. So one of the things that we have talked about is that book one was a pretty narrow book about kind of setting up the base of the world and these characters. Book two expands the lore, and I'm thinking like the attack on the ship that they're on, and the animal companion that shows up, and, you know, the last scene where they're all hanging out with, you know, people. You expounded the world quite a bit, but you also like, you dangled these little like carrots, like, oh, there's this sort of animal in the world, or there's this sort of, you know, whatever. Book three, are you gonna give us some of those carrots? Are you setting up for the long haul? Like, what's the plan there? Because the world, you think it's magical, and, you know, this, and then it's like, so
both things are true. So you're gonna see more of you're gonna learn more about the nature of animals that instinctively use magic, like one of the animals that we meet at the very end of Blood on the Sand. So you're going to learn more about that in book three. You're certainly going to learn more about the politics of the world and the situation, the political situation that the characters have found themselves in. And it's almost like, I kind of liken it to, it's like it's growing through Aelis's awareness, right? So in book one, book one was very narrowly focused because she was very narrowly focused, right? Like her entire world dealt with her dream of being a battle mage and graduating from the Lyceum, and, you know, bonding with an Aegeon. And then, you know, when things didn't work out the way that she had planned, like that was existential for her, right? And so she like ran away and set in motion all of these events that happen afterwards. And as she grows and matures, she starts to realize like there's other stuff going on in the world that, you know, outside of just you and your little broken heart or whatever, which I think echoes the way that we are as people, right? You know, when your relationship ends and you're 22, like that's the entirety of the world
ending,
right?
Yeah.
You know, and
how will I go on?
Right. It becomes it's a big deal, and you know, the awareness of the larger world around us, and the role that we play in that larger world around us. Now I'm speaking in generalizations, obviously, but for most of us, I think that comes with a little bit more time and maturity. Now that's very compressed in this series because, you know, it hasn't even been a year since the beginning of I think Magelight took place at the beginning of the summer. By the end of Blood on the Sand, I think we're like mid to the late summertime. So it's a matter of months, not years, but it does echo that sort of human evolution, if you will.
I definitely, and you know, you get the sense that prior to book one, in like the preamble, right? Like prior to book one, Aelis is very mousy and very like, just like, she has no confidence, doesn't
Yeah.
believe in herself, is not very good at what she's doing, just
Yeah.
barely, you know, skittering through on like D pluses, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, so she doesn't even like, no part of her would ever think that she becomes part of the world in the way that she does, right?
Right.
So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. And she's still like, that's the other thing too, is that she's still dealing with those confidence issues, even in book 3, because as humans, like our growth is never linear. It's always like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And for her, so much of that growth and confidence is tied up in like her abilities as a mage and her relationship with these guys. And so it's, you know, it's one of those things that she's going to continue to have these moments of self-doubt and these moments of growth and realization. And I think that's the whole point, right? Like that's part of the fun of it. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't want her to become your classic strong female character. You know what I mean?
Yes. It just fits. Yes, I agree. She does make a lot of strides, but she still, there is that nugget of just, how could these strong, sexy
right. Yeah.
Like she just can't believe it. Which,
how do I deserve all 3 of this bounty? You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. So I've got a couple more book questions. I'm just going to let you all know that we're probably going to run a little over an hour because Kacey and I talk a lot. So yeah. You know, it's a good interview when we're like, who cares about the timeline?
We'll try to keep it concise.
No, we're good. I want to know who your favorite character for book 2 is. I think it's allowed to change book by book because, you know.
Yeah. So of the guys, of the core 4, it's still Vil. In some ways, he's because his priorities are so crystal clear, in some ways he's the most mature of the group, right? Because he knows what he wants and he's going to go and get it. That's like cool, like to a sociopathic degree. You know, like, things are very simple for Vil. But I mean, that's not to say that there's not nuance in his character. One of my favorite scenes with him was there's a scene on well, let me answer your other question, then I'll come back to why this is one of my favorite scenes.
Which is one of my second questions. So what's your favorite part of the book? So
oh man, so I've got multiple answers to that one too. Of the side characters that I introduced, and I introduced quite a few of them in Blood on the Sand. I think my favorite is the sorcerer Acton. So I introduced these 2 characters. They're twin brothers. Their names are Acton and Tyrus. Acton is a sorcerer. He's a Bellator. He was like a year or 2 ahead of Aelis in school. And then his twin brother Tyrus is his Aegeon. And I did this for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to show that the Aegeon bond that we make such a big deal of, it has
I think
to be based on some sort of emotional connection, which often
I think I can't tell if it's just me or if it's if you're in the chat, are you having trouble hearing Kacey too, or is it just me? Yeah. Hey folks, so thanks for being patient. We'll get Kacey back on and hopefully hear what she has to say. I'm like, this is the detail, and it just yeah, okay. Yeah. We're getting her back on here, so it'll just be a second. But what she was talking about is these two characters where they've got a twin bond, and they become, the sorcerer and the bonded, warrior. But there's not like a sexual relationship between the two at all. And Acton, the sorcerer, is this kind of flamboyant, just all over the place. I mean, he's a fun character. I can see where he was fun to write. Melissa, I'm not blaming you. This is, unless you guys are sharing internet, then maybe. So, yeah, we'll get this back in. If you haven't told, though, you should check out the book, because Blood on the Sand and Magelight are really fun. Kacey does a really good job of just taking the core concept and expanding it, and setting up the seeds to expand it again in book 3. So I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, sounds like her entire laptop crashed. So we'll just give it a minute to reboot. If you got some questions for Kacey when she gets back, go ahead and add them to the chat, and we'll make sure we get them answered. We're going to flip over to talking a little bit more about craft, but if you've got questions for book 2, go ahead and put them in. I think too, yeah, so we'll do that. I also wanted to get your opinion, as you guys are dedicated listeners. I'm thinking about moving to a format for the podcast as a whole where we do about like a half-hour episode, and then you get a half hour of like recorded episode that you can view later, instead of doing the hour long. When I look at my viewing stats, it seems like people like pop in, maybe stay for 20-30 minutes, and then pop out. And so this would allow a little bit more like chunk of like, here's a conversation about the book, here's another conversation you can listen to later about craft. And if you're not interested in craft, then you don't have to listen to it. So let me know if that's something that you want, or if you really hate the idea, and we'll kind of move on maybe in the month of June. All right, looks like Kacey's back, so I'm going to get her added in here.
Hi.
You're back.
Sorry.
You're back.
I'm on my phone, so hopefully this works. My entire laptop just completely crashed. So that's fun.
What?
Yeah.
Ooh, we're getting a little bit of an echo with me.
Sorry. Okay. I don't have headphones or anything with me right now.
Okay. I'll try to minimize my talking and maybe put stuff in the chat. Can you see the chat?
Oh, perhaps. I can see the chat, but not the video. I can do either or.
Okay. Let's keep the chat up, and I'll try not to make too many strange expressions.
Yeah, so that's fun. Let me see. I might try to, as my laptop reboots here, I might try to come back in with my laptop, because I think that was working. So. Okay, so yeah, so Acton is the characters of Acton and Tyrus. I wanted to do a couple of things with them. One, I wanted to show kind of what like another form of the Aegeon bond could take, because the two of them, they're twin brothers, and the Aegeon bond that I discuss in detail has to be both. It has to be based on like an emotional connection, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic emotional connection. And so that was one of the points that I made with them, is that in their case, they're twin brothers. They have a very tight sibling bond, and so that was the basis for their Aegeon bond. And in the process of writing them, I decided that they look a lot like Chris Hemsworth. So, if that's your jam, you're welcome for that mental image. But I wanted Acton to be particularly powerful, and because I wanted to have Alis kind of have to deal with someone that she knew from her school when she did not have access to her power, and kind of measure her growth through his eyes, if that made sense. And in the process, like I fell in love with their characters, particularly Acton, because he's so Tony Weisskopf, my editor, and the publisher at Baen Books, when she did the developmental edit on Blood on the Sand, she pointed out, she's like, Acton is like John Barrowman as a sorcerer. And so that I thought was particularly apt. And that's just kind of how he comes across. He's very, very flirty with anything that moves. He kind of hides his intelligence and his analytical mind behind his sort of outrageous flirtation and his flamboyance, and it was really, really fun to write him. But he's also really, really smart, and there it was fun to kind of show that too, and show my characters, particularly the boys, particularly Vil, recognizing that that like, oh, okay, this guy, he's more than just the the pretty flirtatious face that he's showing. So Acton is my favorite of the side characters.
Yeah, at first I think he's a real jerk.
Yeah.
And they fall for that facade.
Yeah, absolutely. That's sort of his shtick. Maybe if I can make this. I'm sorry, I'm still trying to get my laptop up so that I can. Why is it like this? Okay. Can I drop out real quick and try to rejoin with the laptop?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're waiting for Kacey. What do you guys think? Half-hour episodes, and then maybe you get 2 half-hour episodes per author. Let me know what you think of that idea. And then maybe some like special. Yeah, every author and I always just chit chat after the episode about stuff. So maybe some after episode stuff for Patreon and stuff. Okay, here's Kacey back. I'm going to add her back in.
I'm sorry, you guys. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah. No, hey.
Yeah.
we can have a conversation again, which is great. Yay. Yeah.
Okay, so my favorite scene. So Baen does this really cool thing where they have you write a short story that kind of ties in with your new release. And so the short story that tied in with the release of Magelight was a prequel to Magelight that actually introduced the characters of Tyrus and Acton. And what I established in that short story is that that Tyrus always kind of liked Alis, right? Like he kind of maybe had a little bit of a crush on her, but he didn't want to pursue it because he always knew he was going to be his brother's Aegeon. And he didn't want to lead her on with a relationship when he knew he wasn't going to be able to like offer her
actualize it.
Yeah, exactly. Which is kind of, honorable, I guess. So now they've met up again in Blood on the Sand, years later as adults. And he tells her that, he lets her know.
She was pretty oblivious to it.
She was, because again, here's a woman who, she knows that she's pretty, but she does not have a good sense of self-esteem, right? Like, being pretty is not that important to her. What's important to her is having access to power. That's what she finds, conceptualizes as something that someone would find attractive in her.
Well, and because she doesn't have that much power in the beginning, that she just thinks she's nothing, right? Like, why would anybody be interested in me? Yeah. Exactly.
You can find a pretty girl in any city, anywhere, right? Like, there's nothing special about me. So in writing Blood on the Sand, there's this wonderful scene. That was a little arrogant, but I had fun writing it. It was wonderful to write, where Tyrus finally gets the chance to tell her, like, hey, I've always been interested in you, and now you have, like, you're obviously, these aren't Aegeons. I know they're not Aegeons, so you're not like married to these guys, but they're your protectors, and you've been vague about what they mean to you. But I just want to let you know, like, I'm interested, throwing my hat in the ring. And Vil is with her watching this happen the entire time. And that scene
He's never clutched a dagger so fast in his life.
Yeah, that scene was super fun to write, because what I was able to do was, it kind of forced the issue for Alis, right? Like, Vil tosses a dagger that thunks into the wood because they're on a ship, thunks into the wood at the, at Tyrus's feet, which Tyrus is, I mean, he's an elite warrior, he's an Aegeon, so he immediately responds appropriately and interposes himself between Alis and the threat. And Vil's like, look, I'm just going to ask, like, is this, he asks Alis, like, is this what you want? Do you trust him to keep you safe? Do you want me to leave? And Alis, again, that forces the issue for Alis to where she kind of really has to confront, like, how do I feel about this? What do I want in this situation? And we hear her tell Vil, like, no, I trust Tyrus. He's going to keep me safe. And Vil takes that as okay. And so he leaves because, he's not going to, he's not going to hang around if he's not, if he's not wanted there or whatever. And then, because of some magical stuff, like we hear because the scene is through his point of view, through Vil's point of view, we hear Alis tell Tyrus, we don't hear what Tyrus asks, but we hear Alis tell Tyrus no. And then she comes and follows, like chases down Vil. And that's the moment at which like he's like, look, what is it that you want from us? Do you want us? And that's the moment where she kind of has to like make that choice, make that decision. And that was a really, really fun scene to write. So,
yeah, that is a pendulum moment of, she's got to stop pretending that.
Yeah. Make your choice, girl.
This was all a magical, compulsion that she put on everybody. And she's got to actually confront that they're still there.
Yeah. If you want someone, you have to own that.
Yeah.
So that was really fun to write. And then, like I said, the arena battle was so much fun to write because, I just had like cheering arena crowds in my head and the soundtrack to Gladiator and, all of those things happening.
It was very dramatic. You need like click this button in the book and the music starts.
Well, I did put the playlist in the back matter, so people can go to Spotify and read and listen to the Blood on the Sand playlist if they want to.
Yeah. A little bit. All right, so we're going to flip over to a little bit of crafting questions.
Okay.
And then I'm probably going to cut a couple of them since we are going to go over even as it is. But first, I just want to ask, how do you think about the genre classification of this series as a whole? I think, from a romantasy perspective, sometimes there's that problem of like the will they won't they get resolved, and then the story kind of gets resolved. And so fantasy has more leeway with that. Talk about your balance and trying to like how do you think of this from a genre?
So that's a really good question. So I have always classified this as a fantasy adventure with a strong reverse harem romantic subplot. And the reason that I do that is because in my world, in my universe, canon according to Kacey, a romantasy book is a romance novel in which the fantasy elements are critical to the plot line. But the fact that the thing that makes it a romantasy and a romance novel is that the critical question, the key question is, are they going to end up together or aren't they? And that's not the case with either Magelight or Blood on the Sand. Those questions are there, but that's not the essential central question of the book. The central question of both books really is, are they going to survive? And for me, that's a distinction. Now I recognize that that's a pretty thin hair that I'm splitting, but here we are. That's the hill I've chosen.
I would say I would agree with you more for book 2 than book 1, but yes, I think. I can see it. I mean, I think book 2, it's a lot more about everything else, right?
Sure. But
but you're right. Book 1 is just, do they survive? I mean, that is essential. That has to come before will they fall in love, because
right.
They don't survive. Who cares?
Well, will they survive? And also will each of them have their power back, their choices back, because it's hey Keith, because it's very much about it's very much a book about like consent and choices, and individual freedoms, things like that. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, so as the series continues, like it'll continue to be a fantasy adventure series. There will continue to be romantic subplots. And like I said, I'm kind of excited to explore the nuances of committed romance, married romance, bonded romance,
Mhm.
however you want to talk about that in book 3 particularly. And kind of seeing where that goes for the rest of the series. So
I love the audacity of being like, I'm gonna have a reverse harem with like romantic based magic bonds,
mhm.
but this is a fantasy adventure. Like, I love it, Casey. I mean, it's
I've
true. I
I've
agree with
never
you. It's just,
I've never been accused of not being audacious.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Next time you come on the podcast, I'll introduce you as the audacious
The
Kacey
audacious
Ezell.
Kacey Ezell.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it is, and that was one of the other things that like I said, I was trying to show with Tyrus and Acton is that the magic is tied to emotion, but it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic emotion.
Yeah.
It's just that the romantic connections that we feel with one another are often some of the strongest that we feel in our lives. And so that's kind of what makes that so common. But Tyrus and Acton, their Aegeon bond is based entirely on their bond as twin siblings,
Mhm.
and it's like Tyrus says over and over again in both in the story, and then he mentions it again in Blood on the Sand. Like it was always going to be that way. Like from the moment they were born, it was always going to be that way.
They knew. Yeah.
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 Okay. So you're working on book 3. What are the plans? Is that going to come out this year, next year?
So it's I've got to turn it in by 1 September, and I think the plan is for spring or summer of 27 for it to come out.
Okay. Mhm.
Yeah. And then
Sweet.
book 4 will follow after that, obviously. So
Do you have a title in mind or a working
I
title?
do. So
Yeah.
the title for book 3 is Wild as the Woods. So, yeah.
You know who that's gonna maybe focus on a little bit more, which
Yeah.
is
So,
wild because like you get the impression that they're not going to be in the woods. Book 2, but yeah, it's gonna be fun. Yeah.
yeah. So, well, they certainly don't plan at the beginning to be spending much time in the woods, but
Dun,
as
dun,
we have
dun.
seen, plans don't. What is it? The Ville said, men plan, and the Dark Lady laughs. It's kind of like
Yes.
that.
Yeah. And they've
Yeah.
got a couple dark ladies involved in their lives, so
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's I'm enjoying writing it. I just hit 50K last night? No,
Ah,
not yesterday because I was driving, but the day before. So so it's coming along.
yeah,
Even
that's
throughout
great.
this move, which did slow me down on
Which is a minor miracle, right? Because it's I
it.
always say that being a writer is not it's not actually the act of writing, it's coming back to writing after you've been interrupted. Like
Yeah,
you're constantly disrupted and having to come back to it. Yeah,
that's a big challenge for sure, for sure.
yeah.
But it's also like I don't know, it's something I look forward to, right? Like yeah, is getting back into the story and getting back. I mean, because they're my friends, these people these imaginary people that
Yeah,
I
you
talk
get to hang out with like a bunch of sexy men and
right, that's right. Yeah.
discover
Yeah.
magic together. I mean,
Yeah.
it's yeah.
It's good times.
Okay, so I know that we've talked a little bit about writing. I know you coach other writers. Can you
Mhm.
talk to me a little bit about like how you help fellow writers get through blocks and like being consistent in their writing practice and what that looks
Yeah,
like?
absolutely. Um, so this is kind of a convoluted story, but when I was in the military, one of the big pushes, throughout my military career, and increasingly so as my career progressed, was a push to build personal resilience. A lot of this was brought on by the stresses of the global war on terrorism and the deployments and ops tempo that people were having to deal with, and so the military started a couple of programs of like teaching various military members like resilience tools that they could then take back to their unit and teach to other people. And so that was sort of the start of my learning about these like resilience tools that people use for all kinds of reasons. And I found it very interesting, and I continued, I used them in my own life. And then I continued learning about them and doing research about them and stuff. And I found myself, when I was, fast forward to, just a couple of years ago, talking with my writer friends, and I mean, everybody has, like you said, it's not writing, it's coming back to writing, right? Like everybody has life events happen. Everybody has, sometimes really, really dramatic and difficult life events, deaths in the family, or, job changes, losses, moves, like all of these kinds of things. And these are the kind of things that can really derail like your sort of creative mind, your creative spirit and stuff. And I have found that in my own personal life as a creative person, I used a lot of these techniques that I first learned about in the military and then discovered as I continued to do research, just because I was interested. And so I would share those with friends of mine. And it got to the point where it was like I genuinely feel like I have something to offer the community, because everybody talks about like, you get stuck and it's hard to get unstuck. And the more stuck you get, the more stuck you are. And it just sort of like becomes this downward spiral.
Spirals. Yeah.
Yeah. And I realized that like I said, I have the tools to offer people. So I've talked people through like, hey, listen, tell me what's going on with you. Why do you feel stuck? Let's talk about this, and let's talk about some of the ways that we can maybe get you moving again, so that you can once again feel that creative juice flow. The title of my online course is called Own Your Creative Fire, because that's really what it is, right? Like each of us as every human, let's be clear about this. This isn't just people who write or create art for a living, but every human has some sort of creative spark in them. And when you feel disconnected from that spark, it can really like adversely affect your quality of life. And so, it's important, just like it's important to take care of your body, it's important to take care of your mind and emotional health. It's important to take care of your creative health too. And that's sort of what I guess how I've tailored those resilience practices to caring for that creative spark and nurturing that creative spark. And so when people are blocked, like, that's one of the things that we talk about is like, okay, well, let's talk about why you feel blocked, and let's talk about how we want to get moving forward and build that positive momentum. So instead of that downward spiral of feeling more and more stuck, we start to build an upward opening spiral of, okay, I did some work. Okay, I'm feeling good about this. Okay, this doesn't feel like a grind now. This feels enjoyable and pleasurable to my brain. Like, these are the things that I need to do. So
yeah,
I don't know if that makes
sense,
but
yeah, no, absolutely. And I honestly, like, you're doing like, not like normally don't use this saying, but you're doing God's work here. Like, I mean, like that. I don't know how many authors I've talked to over the years where, I think that it's this thing about like you're doing your dream or you're doing your passion, and people struggle just like any job, any passion, anything in life, right? And they have this like internal guilt about like, why am I struggling at this thing that I'm passionate about? Like, why is it a grind? Because I love this theoretically, but I don't right now. And I think that downward spiral can really I've seen it just like pull people under, right?
Yeah.
And if you're going to make writing, if you're gonna have writing or creative things be a focus for your life, either professionally or just as a hobby or whatever, you're gonna have these moments where you struggle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not a question of if, it's a question of when,
right?
And it's weird because I'm talking to me personally, because I've personally got so much, I don't know if it's like just self-esteem or like passion, like put into my writing, and this is a career path for me. It's like when you struggle, it becomes really personal, like weirdly in a way that like my corporate job never did, and so you have to deal with a lot of that a lot of that stuff. It's good. I mean, I'm glad that you're in the world and helping people.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. Yeah. I did have, I've gone through one cohort so I actually have two courses. I have like the smaller, more digestible, more affordable one. And then I have, the slightly larger course, which is a full cohort. And we've gone through one of those, and it, people responded really well. I got some really great comments from some of the students, and then I moved, so I haven't opened it up again yet. But once I'm settled, my intent is to open it up again to another cohort and bring more people in, because the other part of it is building the community, right? Building the community of people who, who, like you said, have a creative focus to their life, who are aware of this, this need to nurture that part of their being, and to support each other in doing that. So,
yeah. Keith, when Kacey settles down and has that new cohort, we'll advertise it for her. So I have no doubt she's going to fill up the class.
I appreciate that. That's very kind of you.
Yeah. Do you have a website or something that Keith could find?
It's hang on. Let's see.
You might have to Discord chat it. I think I'm the only one that can put links in the chat.
Yeah, I'll throw it. Yeah, I'll throw it on the Discord. But yeah, it's Keith. I think you're in my Discord. There's a link in there. So, but yeah, I will get you a link for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Are you working on anything else besides book 3? Do you have any other releases or anything else you want to talk about for this year?
No, I think my releases have already happened, because I did. In February, we released Companions in Anguish, which was a Chris Kennedy Publishing 4 Horsemen universe book that was mostly written by David Shadoin, but with me and Kevin Eikenberry assisting. And so that one came out, and it's fantastic. It's like kind of a noir mystery 4HU sort of situation. It's super, super good. So highly recommend that one if you haven't checked that one out. And then I had a story come out in Jamie Ibsen's, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the title of the anthology. Plausibly Deniable from Baen, which was, again, really fun. I co-wrote that story with Nick Steverson. It was sort of we called it, the working title of the story was Fed Girl Mob Guy. So the premise of it is that, and to be clear, we wrote this before the whole Maduro snatch and grab thing in Venezuela. But the premise is that there's this it's a near future sci-fi, with some like cool bionic things going on. But the premise is that there's a
ladder and a window.
Yeah, a sci-fi or a CIA operative. She gets burned and has to figure out how to extract from Venezuela, and the only way that she can do it, and she still wants to complete her mission, right? Even though like half of her team turned on her, and so the only way that she can do that is to team up with this fugitive mob enforcer from the United States, who's hanging out in Venezuela because they didn't have an extradition.
They don't have anywhere else to go. Yeah.
So it's a really, really fun story. Nick Steverson is fantastic at. He's one of those people that like, what I was talking about with like visualizing the action scenes in the arena battles and Blood on the Sand, like Nick does that all the time. Like all of his action scenes are super cinematic and really fun. So that was really good. So that came out in March. And then also in March, Monster Hunter Files Volume 2 came out with my story, Inspiration. So speaking of creative things and the decay thereof, that's sort of one of the themes of that story.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. It sounds like you had a really busy spring this year. And potentially pretty busy spring next year. So that's, yeah.
It's been wild. Things have been moving fast, and like I said, my family and I we're in the middle of a move and starting a new job and stuff. So yeah, crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
Love it. Where are you? Where are we going to see you this year? Are you going to any cons or book signings or things like that that people could catch you at?
So I was going to go to LibertyCon and I was going to go to LitRPG Con, but both of them now conflict with my new work schedule. So I won't be, so
yeah.
To be determined on the convention front this year. However, you can always find me on my website. All my socials are linked there. I haven't been as active on social media right now because I am like in the middle of moving and stuff. But if you reach out to me, I'll respond. So
yeah. And what's the best place to find you? Facebook, Patreon, Discord?
The best place to find me is, so start at my website, www.kaceyezell.net or .com. Either one works. I own both. And like I said, all of my socials are linked there. You can reach out to me via Facebook or Instagram. That works. Or if you sign up for my newsletter, which again, I have not sent out in a couple of weeks, but if you sign up for my newsletter, then you'll get a link to the Discord. And that's probably the best way to get personally in touch with me is through the Discord. So
yeah, that's fair. Okay. And then do you have a book that you have read that you would recommend? We say put on Pop's TBR, but really it's a book that you've read that you're like, everybody should read this book.
Oh my gosh. Can I give you two?
I think last time you gave me three, so we're moving in the.
Oh, maybe these are the same ones. Then. Did I tell you "Rise from Ruin" by?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Well, "Tempered by Fire" is about to come out, so I'll say that one. "Tempered by Fire" is book 2. I'm so excited, you guys. It's awesome. It's a little dark. Yeah.
She told me that it's Emperor Strikes Back as the
A little bit. Yeah. The one of her taglines for it is sometimes you can do everything right and still lose. So, brace yourselves. But it's so good. So good. So yeah, we'll say "Tempered by Fire."
She also killed her, I think it was her son's favorite character or something she killed.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. She's brutal, man. Melissa pulls no punches. So that one. Also, if you're into like sci-fi, you could definitely check out the Bronze Legion series that she co-wrote with Jason Cordova. They just turned in book 2. Book 1 came out in January. They just turned in book 2. They're both fantastic. So
okay. Bronze Legion and Tempered. Okay. At the end of the year, I think we're going to do like a graphic with everybody's recommendations for the year. It's going to be fun.
Oh, that's fun. That'll be cool.
Yeah, it'll be good. So. Well, thank you so much for joining today and working through the technical,
Thanks for your patience with my technical,
Yeah, no, it's good. It happens. So everybody, you can catch me next podcast. I'll be on next Tuesday with Pop. And we've got a special guest that he's going to do some advertisements on. So yeah, it's gonna be exciting. And then I'll have Jason Willis on the week after that, talking about his next book in the series, Dropout, in the System Apocalypse series. So I'm excited. I've just started reading it. So so far it's good, you guys. So exciting. So thanks everybody for joining today for this early session, and maybe we'll have to do more of these. We had quite a few people join today, so
that's awesome. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a good one.